Welcome to Stab the Dragon Productions, episode number 197, as we continue our quick survey of some Canadian whiskies. Tonight's episode is a study of Canadian Mist. Just the facts. Canadian Mist comes from Collingwood, Ontario, where the distillery was built in 1968 by Barton, specifically to craft a whiskey for Americans. With a corn base and rye for flavor, plus some malted barley, this brand is currently owned by Sazerac, an American company, weighing in at 80 proof, no age statement, which means at least 3-year-old whiskey. This whiskey cost me $11.99 for this 750 milliliter plastic bottle. Tasting notes. The nose carries through on the palate, that is corn sweetness, cereal, touch of candy corn even, maybe some butterscotch. Nothing bad on the nose, really, and nothing bad in the flavors initially. Now, to read the professional reviewers, whiskey snobs all, this stuff is awful. I find it okay, pleasant maybe, but simple. An easy sipper, certainly, nothing big or bold. And toward the end of the glass, I did start to get a little bit of maple flavor, perhaps a little bit faint there, but it's there. My score was 66. Letter grade for drinkability, C+. And I did notice, I'm going to have to go back. The reason I'm drinking this is an establishment that I frequent, private club, has this as one of the 4 Canadian whiskeys that they have. And to me, my bottle tasted significantly different than theirs. So I'm going to go back and order that again at the club and see if there is a difference between the two. That would be interesting. I'm not sure why I detected that. So my recommendation. This is an inexpensive bottom shelf Canadian whiskey that it doesn't really taste bad to me. It's certainly not harsh. It's mildly pleasant, like Canadians in general. It's inoffensive, like Canadians in general, but just generally not really all that good. It is a pleasant sipper, but not as flavorful as other Canadian whiskeys, like even Black Velvet. I think I like better than this. Canadian Club, absolutely, or Crown. Yeah, the Crown's twice the price of this. So, this one and Black Velvet are similarly priced. It's better than some bourbons that I've had, I'll say that much, and some bottom shelf scotch that I've had, definitely. So to me, it's not bad. It's just really not all that good or interesting. So nothing on the negative, but very little on the positive. So I would say give it a pass. There are lots better options than this. But if I was out somewhere and somebody offered me a drink of this and that was what they were having, I would probably accept it with thanks. But if I was offered a bottle, saying, hey, you want a free bottle? I would decline even if I had lots of space in my cabinet. Let's get on to the details now. The history of, well, before I do that, let me open a bottle of Canada Dry ginger ale, and I am going to make a little cocktail here to see how this does as a cocktail. I had some yesterday or day before with RC, Royal Club Cola, and it was not real good mixed with RC. I have heard that it's decent mixed with ginger ale, so we're going to try that. And here, I don't have a Canadian shot glass, but I've got my Alaska shot glass. So there's that. I'll add a little bit more ginger ale. Okay, there we go. So we'll sample this neat and in a simple, very simple cocktail. All right, so history. in either 1967 or 68. I've got two different books with two different dates, and then I researched it online, and you know, they gave the later date of 68 too. So I don't know. It says Barton, Barton Brands out of Kentucky built a distillery in Collingwood, Ontario, on the shores of Lake Huron, specifically to make Canadian blended whiskey for the American consumers. Canadian Mist was born. But again, online sources frequently say that it was Brown-Forman that started the brand. So another source that I've got said it was started by Barton and then sold just the next year to Brown-Forman. So I can understand how that mistake would be made possibly, but we'll see. I don't know how to, because when all your sources disagree, what do you do? But in 1971, Brown-Forman supposedly purchased the plant. So again, I got a 69 date for Brown-Forman. I got a 71 date for Brown-Forman. Sources are conflicting. But it says they purchased the plant and brand, and then in 2020 sold it to Sazerac. And Sazerac owns it today. In the 2009 San Fran World Spirits Competition, it won double gold. Really? And people wonder why I kind of doubt all the gold medals that are floating around. Too bad if you go to the Sazerac website, they have so little about this whiskey on their site. They have nothing, not even flavor notes, nothing. I mean, they have a picture of it and they say, oh, this is ours. And that's about it. So Sazerac's website is next to useless. The 2025 Canadian Whiskey Awards, just this month, January of 2025. Canadian Mist won? Nothing. Zip. Nada. Yet. Zero. And in recent years, Canadian Mist still has been on the top 20 best-selling whiskey brands in the US of A, varying from number 14 to number 20 to not being on the list at all. So when you check over the last 6 or 7 years, you get a variety of places on that list. And of course, there's different lists out there. There's no authoritative list of best-selling whiskeys anywhere. So you get a variety of responses. So that's the history of this misbegotten bottom shelfer. So 1 out of 5 points for history. Bottle label marketing. Well, the bottle is plastic, so the shape is okay though. It's kind of a cool shape, and the label is reasonably attractive. It's not imposing, it's not classy, but it's there. It's somewhat attractive. Shows the color of the whiskey, which food coloring is added. But the bottle basically says, "We know we're a bottom shelfer and we own it." Now, I have not seen any ads for this whiskey, but I do see it in Fort Worth liquor stores everywhere. And again, like I said, it's in the local private club that I attend. Why is it there? I have no idea. So bottle label and marketing, 2 points. Visual appearance. Kind of a light amber. It's probably a two-pointer there on my scale. Kind of a honey colored, but it's a little bit darker than say Cutty Sark Scotch, but that's about a 2. Composition. With a base whiskey of corn, this has rye and malt in it, but all I can taste really is the corn. Yeah, I couldn't tell you that there's rye in there. I mean, I taste corn. It is triple distilled, coming in at 40% or 80 proof, and minimum age is 3 years old. But when you blend stuff, who knows what they blend it with. So that's why there's no age statements on most Canadian whiskeys. Some of them do have age statements, but most of these don't. So for composition, than 7 out of 10. Or no, that's not right. 10 out of 15 for composition. There you go, 10 out of 15. Nose. Again, there's not a whole lot on the nose. Maybe some corn sweetness, cereal, even candy corn. Perhaps butterscotch. It's not a bad nose. It's faint. There's just not a whole lot there. 7 out of 10 is my basic score. My nose is a little bit inadequate for smelling whiskey, so 7 points. Taste. The website, again, says nothing. But I do think the nose carries through on the palate at least. So you get the corn sweetness, the cereal. Maybe a touch of candy corn and butterscotch. Again, there's nothing bad there. So, I mean, I've had some bourbons that were just awful. Okay, so this is definitely a step above some of those bad bourbons that I've had. And it takes a lot for me to say something's awful. It really does. I have a very generous palate. Okay. But again, when you read the reviews online or listen to them on YouTube, so many people hate on these things so bad and just talk about how horrible it is. I don't find this horrible. I mean, this is an easy sipper. Now, it's nothing big or bold. There's not a whole lot to write home to mom about. Although, if I wrote home to mom about drinking Canadian whiskey, that would be an issue. So, you know, toward the end of the glass, I start to get maple flavor, I think. But I get that with all Canadian whiskeys. I mean, it may be psychological. I don't know. Mouth, so 19 out of 25 for taste. 19 out of 25 for taste. Mouthfeel, burn, and finish. You know, it's a tad thin, but not distractingly so. Mouthfeel is light, but it does leave enough flavor and tingles for a medium finish. I mean, you know, I feel it going on. I taste the flavors a little bit. There's nothing negative there. Certainly no ethanol. There's not really a burn in my sinuses, mouth, or down my esophagus. So, you know, very little burn, just the pleasant tingles after drinking it that says, I just drank whiskey, you know. So I find it pleasant, though simple. Easy sipper. And again, there's nothing negative here. It's for an 80 proof whiskey. I find it appropriate, but I do kind of miss the burn. I wish there was more to it there. The finish, the lingering to mid-range finish, you know, there's nothing outstanding about that. There's nothing negative, but, you know, it's generally pleasant. So mouthfeel, burn, and finish, 11 out of 15. Now, neat or mixer. As a neat sipper, it's okay. I have no problems with it. I tried it with the RC Cola yesterday, or a couple of days ago, and it was not very good. Something turned bitter. Mixing it with RC, it was kind of bitter. Now, as I drank down and then refilled my glass with more RC, it got better because the RC drowned out the Canadian Mist. Okay, so here we go with the Canada Dry Ginger Ale. Let's see what this does. That's much better. That works better than the RC. There's still just a little hint of bitterness on the finish. So if you approach this whiskey, but see, this is diet. This is Diet Canadian Club. And diet drinks can have that little bitter thing at the end. Now the RC was full bore RC. It wasn't diet. And so that's why it kind of surprised me that there was a bitterness there. Here, the bitterness is the Canadian Club diet. You know, it's I don't think it's the whiskey. So this is much better in the Canadian Club. No, Canada Dry. I'm saying Canadian Club. This is Canada Dry. There you go. I've never even had Canadian Club. That's club soda, right? I don't know. Well, Canadian Club's also the whiskey. Whatever. Canada Dry. That's it. So neater mixer. I'm gonna give it a 3 because it worked with the ginger ale, but not with RC. And then as a neat drink, it was okay. So neater mixer, 3 points. Price, value, and availability. While the price is an amazing $11.99, it's I got that at Goody Goody, but you know it's going to be about that at all the other stores. Well, like Specs has it for $11.46, but Total Wine doesn't have the $7.50. At Total Wine, you've got a 1.75 for $17.99. That is a lot of Canadian Mist, and I don't know what the purpose of that would be. Okay, so, you know, the price is really good. Availability is really good. But value. Is there a purpose for this whiskey? I mean, I guess, you know, as a cheap drunk, maybe. I guess. You know, and a lot of people in bad financial straits. I mean, you can only afford things like Canadian Mist and Black Velvet, I guess. And you know, so yeah, it serves a certain segment of the population, but it's just not real good. I mean, it's okay. Okay, I'm not saying it's terrible. It's not. But for value, for me, it's lacking a little bit. So I'm going to say only 9 out of 10 points for price, value, and availability. Bonus points. It's an American-owned Canadian whiskey. 3 points. You know, I guess it's got a purpose in life. My total score, therefore, is a 66, which is pretty low for me. Letter grade C+. And again, my recommendation, this is an inexpensive, bottom shelf Canadian whiskey that, while not tasting bad, while not harsh, it's only mildly pleasant. It's inoffensive, but generally not really all that good. It's a pleasant sipper, but not as flavorful as the other Canadian whiskeys, like even Black Velvet or Canadian Club in particular, or Crown Royal. Those, you know, well, except for Crown Royal, those are in a similar price range and are much better. But this is better than some of the bourbons that I have had and some bottom shelf scotch. So it's not bad. It's just not all that interesting or good. And I would give it a pass for most people. Just don't waste your time. The only reason I'm sampling this is because my private club has this, and I'm comparing the Canadian whiskeys that they have. So that's what I'm doing. But again, if this was offered to me, if I'm out and about some friend's house and says, hey, I've got some whiskey and it's Canadian Mist, I would take it with thanks. But if I'm offered a bottle, no, I'm going to decline. So my conclusion then is this whiskey, you know, it's if you can't afford much, and I will probably get to that point of poverty where I can't afford much, then, you know, yeah, I can see that. But I think there's a lot of better whiskeys for just a little bit more money. You know, there really are. And that's bourbons and other Canadian whiskeys. Scotches, to get to decent scotch, you're going to come close to doubling the price here. But, you know, so that's my evaluation and my conclusion of Canadian Mist. All right, next time I think we may do a redo of Black Velvet. I reviewed Black Velvet a couple of years ago. I may do a second edition of that, or I might go into the Canadian rye whiskeys, and or maybe just start the competition between these basic Canadian whiskeys. We'll see. This is Stab the Dragon, out here.